Welcome to the President and CEO Focus on the Middle Market podcast series, where President and CEO Founder Paul Stukel discusses middle market issues with business leaders from across the nation. Today, Paul speaks with Kevin Klock, CEO of Seattle-based beverage company Talking Rain, about his extraordinary turnaround of the company in a mere 3 years, his philosophy on management, and what the future holds for this rapidly growing $200 million company.
Kevin, first of all, congratulations on the amazing success of Talking Rain. It's a really remarkable story, at least from my perspective. Gosh, in the annals of a sort of sleepy brand that never got any traction, and all of a sudden, a change in management occurs and it takes off. It's really amazing. I just in reading about it. Maybe we could start out with you just giving a brief history of your time at Talking Rain, because as I recall, you were the vice president of operations before you sort of took the helm. Can you just give us a sense of that?
Yeah, sure. So I started with the company in October 2006, came in as a VP of operations, and the company was looking to make a national push. And what had happened is, as you'd seen with Sobe LifeWater, not Sobe LifeWater, but Sobe itself, Fuse, Izzy, and ultimately, shortly after I joined this company, Vitamin Water, there was this kind of almost, you think back to the tech boom of the 90s, almost kind of a beverage boom in the early 2000s where companies grew rapidly and then sold themselves off to strategics. And so Talking Rain kind of seeing that same element, and certainly there were others such as Jones and other companies out there that saw this same thing, decided to leave its core and go into what was, quote, new age beverages, which was going to be the next great category, and spend a lot of money and effort over from 2007 to 2010 trying to do exactly that. The company, in the meantime, continued. Sometimes it had its private label business. It also had some of its old business, actually, of which Ice and Talking Rain Essence are which a part of, continued to constantly chunk out new brands and new products. But the national focus was on Active Water and Twist. And come circa 2010, all of a sudden the owners have said, this doesn't make financial sense for us anymore. We're not seeing the traction we need to see. Plus the retailers started to drop us, and distributors were starting to drop us. And however it worked out, the CEO and the president and vice president of sales all left within a 6-week period in the spring of 2010. And, they all moved on to good job opportunities, and some have been successful in their own rights in their new roles. So, but it was a time when the company was not in very good financial shape. And in fact, they asked me, I was the last senior manager. They were going to go out and look for a president, said why they were doing that. They gave me the opportunity to run the company, and I'd always wanted to be a CEO, but figured since I didn't have a sales and marketing background, hadn't had my MBA yet, that time may not come. So, but at least while I had the opportunity, told them to, tell me how I did if there was something I wasn't doing right. So at least if the opportunity came in the future, I'd be ready for it. And we did some really good things and got the business turned around, and shortly thereafter we were on our way.
Okay, so my goodness, you come into this situation. This is by definition a company in crisis. Really struggling with its big push. Executive leadership just leaves en masse, and you come in never having run a company, I believe. My goodness, how did you turn it around? It's astonishing. Yeah,
well, I had never turned around a company, but I certainly had turned around some business aspects of companies in my previous roles, once as a plant manager, once as a production manager, and one time actually just kind of as a more junior in my career overseeing international operations at one location. So I had done turnaround jobs before, and, there's kind of usually two things that come into play always when you do that. One is focus, and one is obviously people, and people are always important. You got to have great people. You can have a great brand and not have great people and not be successful, and you can have great people and not have a great brand and not be successful. So you got to have both of those elements. And one of the things we certainly felt compelled to is that within Talking Rain's portfolio, there's a brand of sparkling ice that had been around for almost 20 years, had never had any marketing behind it, had just kind of been sitting there and continued to sell. And many of us in our own personal lives enjoyed it, and certainly our friends enjoyed it. So one of the first things in terms of deciding which product, when you're in that kind of situation, you got to make some quick decisions and go. Because it's either that or you're going to eventually just, sell off the assets, which actually one of the first things I was asked to do is sell the assets off. So we were kind of getting to that point. But, we had to define who we were. We went out, we created a vision, and our vision was to be recognized as a leading beverage company in creating brands that people trust and enjoy. And one of the first things that meant was that we were going to become a branded company. So we dropped the co-packing that we were doing out there. We wanted to create brands that people trust and enjoy, so we wanted to be more about refreshment and simple versus trying to be something that's complex that you have to explain to. And so we took the sparkling ice, and in my background I had worked for Nestle, and Nestle is all about branding. I had spent some time in contract manufacturing for Starbucks and Pepsi, all great branded companies. And one of the things, I talk about brand consistency, brand experience, and what we did is we then engaged in really working on the brand experience of Talking Rain, or sparkling ice, I should say. And we were fortunate we had one in terms of orange mango that seemed to always outsell the rest, so we kind of used that as our guiding light and really spent a lot of time looking at all the elements of the orange mango. And for the first time, we defined what sparkling ice was. And I think that was one of the key elements that we did at the time. And then we really changed we always had said, geez, imagine if we put some marketing behind it. The company historically was very grassroots-minded, had not done a lot of really integrated marketing. And so we really then started looking at, okay, how do we market our products? And started looking at the packaging and how we took products to market, and really just worked on the whole overall brand experience. And I would say that was one of the things that led us to great success. And then, of course, over time, brought in the people element, where you really, looking out for really people who really want to be a part of something special. And I would say one of the things that's great today is not only do these people at Talking Rain, not only are they out, selling our product, they're also the consumers of it as well. What a great situation when you have the people that work for you also are users of your own product. And that was probably one of the things also that told us this was a product to go with, because when you have a free program, we're a beverage company, so we have a free beverage program, and what's the product that's taken out of the coolers all the time? It's sparkling ice. So that was one of the things that helped us also make a decision to go with that product.
Yeah, that's neat. I had read somewhere that when you took over the reins, as it were, you sort of brought in manufacturing folks and sales and marketing folks. You sort of took a very collaborative approach in terms of the people in the company from all the disciplines. Is that obviously to great effect? Is that sort of a reflection of your management philosophy overall?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, after we created the vision, we also created values, and one of the values is collaboration, and it's probably one of the key values. It's funny, when we put together the business plan every year, and we'll put a business plan up there, my hope is that somebody in that room will look at each element of the business plan and say, well, that was my idea. And, I don't proclaim to know everything, and ideally what I believe the thing I do best is listen what the employees are saying, and really able to formulate a business plan based on what they're saying. And then when we get, as we come all together and we review the business plan, hopefully everybody sees their elements into it. And what we do once we create the business plan will really generate key performance indicators. We identify as a group those key performance indicators, and then what happens is the managers of each of those areas would go back to their employees and work with their employees and say, okay, what are the objectives and expectations necessary to achieve these KPIs? And the way I always do it with my employees, if I got KPIs, is I'll give them, here's a KPI. Why don't you come back to me and tell me what you think you need to do to achieve these? And then it's a real collaborative effort in terms of identifying those objectives and expectations. And what we do now is we meet we put it in the trimesters because quarterly is just too frequent. where we meet on our objective expectations to see if we're achieving our key performance indicators, and we may change those based on maybe we're growing so fast, many of the business aspects can change, or the employee may need some assistance, or it's just a good guiding light for them. But absolutely, collaboration. It's the only way you get there, because I think some of the best tests you'll ever do get in a room, hand everybody out a test, and have them work on it individually, see how many answers they get right, and then have them work on it collaboratively, and notice that the percent score increase goes up substantially.
Obviously, you're growing dramatically, and I believe your head count, your head count is exploding. You're at something like 210 employees now, and continuing to grow. Yeah.
Yep.
How do you, particularly given the collaborative nature? The collaborative approach requires a lot of effort in terms of just simple logistics of organization, feedback, all that kind of stuff. And then you have to sort of inculcate your values into new people coming on, and when new people are coming on in a very, very fast rate, that's a challenge. How are you dealing with this dramatic growth in that respect?
Well, it is probably one of the more difficult challenges that you face, because obviously you want to do a really good job of onboarding your employees and immersing them in your culture. I would say probably that's something, if you were to rate us as something we haven't probably been able to do as good a job on, but part of that is just because of the sheer amount of hiring you're having to do and how quickly we had to put people into roles. But I would give you an example of like supply chain. A year ago, we didn't even have a supply chain department. We recognized that was core, as a lot of your variable costs these days are in transportation, and so how you manage that is important. We created a department, and it's amazing what they have pulled off in 1 year. We almost have, from order to shipment, the whole process almost completely automated, and they brought on a third-party logistics firm. We put in a national warehousing program, got our manufacturing base up to where we've got now room for long-term growth. So even though we pretty much had to throw people into the fire, we seem to have done a good enough job really inspiring them and picking the right people that in really a year's time, if you look at it, most of those employees now have been with us less than a year, have really come in to perform. And I think part of the thing that helps is if you have a clear vision, if you have clear objectives and expectations. One thing, people always want to do people always come to work wanting to do the best job they can, and if the message is pretty clear what they want to do, sometimes you'll hear a lot of people saying, well, they weren't trained properly or something like that. But I think we don't give people enough credit sometimes. I think a lot of people can come in, and as long as they understand what the expectation is, they'll rise to it.
Obviously, you had this remarkable success, and as I understand it, there's a sort of a big new marketing push, or is either in process or is coming to the fore. But it's a pretty fickle marketplace, as I'm sure you know. Obviously, the Snapple example is forefront in people's minds when you talk about the beverage world, particularly the non-alcoholic beverage world. What's next for you folks? Are you going to ride sparkling ice, or are there new products on the horizon? A combination of the both? What do you see as the future here?
Well, I think if you look at some of the best examples of what have happened in the last few years in the beverage category of those who have been successful will be Arizona and Monster beverages. And what they have done is they did a really good job of coming out. They had a core brand that is kind of a flagship, and they've done a nice job of surrounding it with some line extensions. Probably haven't seen as much success coming out with new brands, which could tell you maybe that whether the branding is somewhat limited or not. Hard to say, but obviously, as you know, it takes a tremendous amount of effort bring in a second brand, because from a marketing standpoint, that's all of a sudden you've got almost have to create contrary companies, which you saw with Monster when they separated out from Hansen's. And so I think you'll see us kind of go along the same model as that. You'll continue to. We just launched lemonades 3 months ago. The lemonade category is very hot. We're already number 4 in that category, and we plan to be number 1 by next year. And I don't think there's any, at this point in time, no question in our mind that's where we'll be. So we've already shown that we can take the sparkling ice. We're not limited to where we're at. We can start extending off of that. and there's some real key categories. Absolutely, it's a fickle market, so you can't just rest on your product, and I think that's something we do really well. We recently built a new corporate office, and the new R&D center was really core to that, and we're going to continue to reevaluate ourselves all the time and make sure we're on top of our game and on top of the trends that are in the market. And being as large as we are now, that's one of the strengths I think we bring to the industry, to the retailers as well as distributors, the ability to bring brands to the market that are on trend that will deliver value to the whole supply chain. So I think that's actually a core strength now that we're in position for.
Our publication serves middle market executives, middle market CEOs primarily, and you're right in that sweet spot. On the other hand, if you keep growing as fast as you are, you won't be middle market for long. So when I have these conversations with people who are as obviously successful as you are, particularly someone like you who has taken a troubled company, a troubled brand, and really turned it around to make it a very, very dynamic company and a very fast-growing company. There are a lot of companies, in the situation of, we've had this product or service, for 20 years, and it's kind of moribund at this point. Yeah, it's struggling along, and it's a bit, but they don't. The challenge there is, this has been around for such a long time. How do we really, remake ourselves? And remake our product, remake our services or whatever it may be, to make it grow again. And for someone like yourself, who's clearly achieved that, do you have any advice for those folks in terms of what they should do, or just maybe philosophical points that might help them in terms of their future?
Well, I think it's about focus, and I'll tell you on the focus side, our company was very entrepreneurial. And I think that's a dilemma that some of these companies can get into. They're too focused. They get so focused on constant innovation that they forget to focus in on what the product that they put out on the market. If you look at history, a lot of companies have put great products to the market, but ultimately get beat by someone who takes their existing product and makes it even better. So I would say focus on what your core is. And the second part is really got to understand what is your core. Do you have a vision as to what you want to be as a company? One of the things, and I think this helped us be successful as well, I asked the owners early on, the old inevitable, what do you want to be when you grow up question. And I think that was important that they said they just wanted to be a solid beverage company, and that may seem kind of strange, but if you look at what's happened in the beverage industry so much recently, if you would talk to a beverage entrepreneur, the first thing he's going to tell you is what his exit strategy is. And instead, we focused on making a successful business model that returns a good, that has a solid return to its owner. And, if an exit strategy comes, it will come as a result of great success. So if they focus in on their product, continue to improve it, and then I would say, the second piece would be obviously understand what your core is and really what is your vision of your company.
Any sort of parting thoughts in terms of your company or in terms of your philosophy?
Well, I think, in the end, the other comment I would make, it does come back to people. I mean, it really is inevitably a lot of the times it's not necessarily that people maybe be in the wrong roles, and you can, you got, like you say, a square peg in a round hole, and I would really evaluate the personnel that you have, and maybe you need to, bring in some new blood, or you need to shift some people around to give them new experiences. And but a lot of the time, like I said, you can have a great brand, but if you don't have great people, and I think some of the things we've seen, we've really focused in on culture and people, and obviously I've had some people come into our offices and meet, and they really realize that this is a business now, and it's more than just a bunch, people who are sitting around and things just happen to work out for them. It's happening because there's a lot of effort being put behind it and a lot of good thinking. So, I never dismiss the people side of the business, and it's important to, I think, work with your people as much as it is your brand.
Be sure to check back for future editions of the President and CEO Focus on the Middle Market podcast series. Thanks for listening.